waiting on. Are you on?
I am. I can go to the Zoom.
Okay, you're going to the Zoom. It's 6:52 p. May the 5th, 2025, and we're here at the Public Safety Standing Committee meeting. Call to order. Roll call. Alderwoman O'Neill is not present, but we have Alderman Gay, who's on Zoom at this
Present.
time. I've spoken with him. To approve the minutes, we will defer that to the next meeting. General discussion, but we're going to move the agenda, and we're going to start with the police department, then the fire department, then the Office of Emergency Management. Alderman Gay, can you make a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I will. I make a motion to approve the Public Safety Committee agenda as amended.
Your call has been forwarded.
You got it?
I can hear you totally fine. Can you hear me? All right, let's rock and roll. Yeah, I'm not sure. The phone thing was confusing me there. No, no, you're fine. That's no problem. I'm on standby. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're back live. Sorry for the delay. Roll call, Alderwoman O'Neill is not here. Alderman Gay. Alderman Gay?
I cannot. I'm not sure. Can they hear me?
Alderman Gay,
anybody
we can
speaking?
hear you.
I can now. Okay, now I can.
You can hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay, good, very good. Roll call again. Alderman O'Neill is not present. Alderman Gay, are you here?
Present.
Thank you. And we need to amend the agenda. We're going to have police go first, then fire, then Office of Emergency Management. Can you make a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve the amenda as agended.
Thank you. Second, all in favor? Aye. I
Aye.
hear no no's. We have with us this evening Chief Jackson, Captain Thacker, and Captain Howard. Kaylin. Don't move. There we go. All right. Good evening, gentlemen. Sorry for the delay. Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening, Alderman Gay. Of course, my staff has already been introduced. I had my deputy chief here earlier, but he had to go home and attend to something urgent. His daughter's fine, but he had to attend to something else urgent, so
Good.
he had to leave about an hour ago. But of course, I have my two captains with me who can chime in. We'll be quick because I know time is of the essence and the weather is supposed to be severe. But I'd like to start off to kind of give an overview. We have our summer crime plan in effect. All 8 wards will be represented in the crime plan at some point or another. The crime plan is going to be data-driven, and then there's activities we're going to have in anti-crime or crime prevention strategies and activities that we're going to have in all 8 wards. Visibility, we're going to do as many crime prevention initiatives as we can possibly do. And we have some other things planned, like some softer things, like in community engagement. We want to have them every couple of weeks, and to make sure that the residents get a sense of presence from the Annapolis Police Department. So we're kind of excited, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the evidence-based information stats that we receive from Christine O'Neill bears out at the end of the summer when the summer plan will commence. And I'll just say, with the last year, we estimated that it will be over with in September, but if things don't settle down and we don't see a marked difference, we'll continue it as long as we need to until we get a sense and the residents get a sense that things are okay. And so we're looking forward to that. And now what I'll do is I'll kind of give a quick overview, and then I'll have the two captains talk about some things. I like for Captain Thacker just to take a couple of minutes when I finish to talk about the way he has these officers or our officers engaged. I've been pleased with what I saw. So if the summer plan is implemented, if the summer plan is implemented the way that he has these young men and women engaged already, I think that the residents are going to be pleased with the results, and we should have a relatively peaceful summer. I wish I could guarantee crime-free, but of course I can't guarantee that. But I think it'll be a safe city throughout the course of the summer. So I'll start off with the homicides and where they rank. Of course, Ward 3 ranks tied for first with Wards 1 and 7. During the fiscal year from 2024 to the present, we've had 2 homicides. But the calendar year, so far in 2025, we've only had 1. And that homicide was on Hoclaw, involving the 18-year-old. And of course, the homicide that occurred in 2024 was the 55-year-old female who was gunned down on Forest Drive at Bobwater in front of the
Right.
Safeway. And that was tied to another incident in Georgetown.
Yeah.
And so those are the two homicides. Rape, they ranked second out of 8 wards, but of those rapes, of those 8 rapes, 5 of them were domestic related. And when, according to the National Incident-Based Reporting System and the old UCR, those were crimes that police couldn't have reasonably prevented because it's interpersonal violence, meaning that the victim had a relationship with her attacker. And so that's difficult to police. So out of the, with the rapes, 5 of those 8 rapes were domestic, and they ranked second. I'll go down to aggravated assault. Aggravated assaults, of course, are assaults used where a weapon is used, and the intent is to inflict severe bodily harm to maim all the way up to death. Technically, when somebody is shot, that's an aggravated assault, just to give you an example, a stab. And out of the 8 wards, Ward 3 had a total of 31, and they were second out of the 8 wards. 19 of those, 19 of them were domestic, and the locations where they occurred, 7 were in residential, on the residential premises, and the other 14 were on the street. So 7 were committed in the residence, the other 14 were on the street. Then I'll move down to robbery, and these are all crimes against persons. They're tied for third, again with wards 1 and 7. The robberies, 2 were domestic. The weapons used, 4 with a hand, 3 with a firearm, 1 with a knife, and then 1 other was characterized as other. Next is burglary, and they were 5th out of the 8 wards. They had a total of 9, and they were 5th out of 8 wards. 3 were domestic, 3 were residential, no force. 1 was residential force, and 5 were businesses force. And when we say force, we don't mean physical force against a human being. A window was broken, the door was pried, they gained entry by using some type of device or even their hands to break in. The next one is theft. And this is where they were at the top of the charts. They were first out of the 8 wards. You had 18 from motor vehicles. We had 58 from shoplifting. We had 36 from a building. We had 11 from motor vehicle parts. And the other 15 were all others. And we had 1 purse snatching. And the difference between the purse snatching, robbery, or assault and purse snatching is that the manner was that they made no physical contact with the victim. They just snatched the purse from out of her hand, or out of his hand. And then the last category is motor vehicle theft. We had 20, and they were second out of the 8 wards. 3 of the suspects were known to the victim. 8 were unlocked, and they were recovered. 10 were locked and recovered. 1 was locked and not recovered, and 1 was unlocked and not recovered. So we have 2 motor vehicle thefts, so stolen autos, as we commonly refer to them, as not recovered. The other 18 were recovered.
Chief, my numbers for Ward 3 don't look too good.
I mean, when we got to the businesses, it jumped out because you have so many businesses on West Street, and
Right.
yeah, and so along that quarter you have more than 100 businesses.
I got
there.
over 900 in my ward alone.
And you have, yes, ma'am, you have so many areas where there's a lot of businesses, and
even the personal, I mean, as far as the crimes against person, either second or first or tied, is there a crime plan for Ward 3, I guess, and you have your 2 stellar folks sitting here. I'm just wondering, how can we mitigate some of this? I mean, with some things as far as shoplifting and all, not much, I guess, you can do about that with the businesses
Because
and
that's,
all.
yes,
But is
ma'am,
there
that's private
something-
property. That's just some legal
Is
issues
there
there.
something we can do as far as a crime plan is concerned in Ward 3? I guess is my ultimate question.
Well, I'll let them talk, but I'll start off saying that
Okay.
the plan, that what I asked them to do is that we have to engage in intelligence-based enforcement, meaning that we have to look at the crime, we have to know where the crime is most likely to occur, we have to look at different trends, and then we have the Special Enforcement Action Team, SEAT, which is a group of young men, no women, all young men, right? Yeah, young men that are going to be out there in plain clothes, who are highly trained, who are going to know what to look for in terms of trying to identify either individuals wanted on warrants or the characteristics of those individuals who are walking around armed. That's one component of it. And then I'll let them talk about everything from warrant initiatives, and that's where Captain Howard and Captain Thacker can come in. So that's how we're going to mitigate that, in addition to the community outreach. But either one of you can start.
So, Madam Chair, as we look at your violence, your crimes against persons, so your homicides, you're tied with one. You're tied with two other wards, 1 and 7. So the homicides that occurred in your ward, they were both targeted. One was inside of a private dwelling, and the other, she was in her privately owned vehicle and was shot and killed inside of a parking lot. So outside of, maybe knowing prior to those incidents, the good thing for your ward, we don't have a lot of people walking around carrying guns. That's what we know. We've been targeting wards like Ward 6 and Ward 2 because of the historical data that we had that was driving those numbers in 2023 going into 2024. Your rapes, again, out of you had 5 rapes. Is that?
And all of them were domestic.
Yo,
All domestic. Partner violence inside of a privately owned residence. The aggravated assaults, again, you look at your aggravated assaults, 31, 19 were domestic. Again, interpartner violence. So it seems like the education piece,
Right, exactly.
the education piece, House of Ruth, a domestic violence advocate, someone who can partner with us to get that message out, to make sure that we don't have the numbers going into 2025 that we saw in 2024. I think that's one way, that's one direction to go in
That's
as
the
well.
key. That's key.
Yes, ma'am. And it's one thing to put things out on social media, on the VMS boards. When we talk about the stolen autos, every ward, when it comes to the stolen autos, it just seems like
Lock your car.
lock your car, take the
your
extra keys out,
Don't leave
any valuables. That is the driving message for all 8 wards that we talked about until we were blue in the face in 2024.
So should there be some sort of aggressive campaign when it comes to, again, it's and the chief and I talked about this a few weeks ago, the consistency of putting it out there over and over and over and over again. We do it and then things, stop and we stop doing it and then it starts up again. So if there's a consistent message over and over and over and over again, like any kind of commercial or I'm not talking about social media, but any kind of media message, finally it starts to kind of, I think, hit. So when it comes to, at least for Ward 3, but all the wards as far as auto thefts from autos, and also from the domestic violence rape aspect, maybe we need to have some aggressive media campaign about it I mean, not necessarily targeted my ward, but for everybody.
But your ward as well. We're going to have Cortland. That's part of his job. Cortland Jackson's job is to get that message out there. So we're working on that now, and we should have that firmed up real soon. I asked the deputy chief to oversee that and report back to me and make sure that we do. That's part of the community engagement, part of the crime plan.
And we had talked about, and you had talked about as well, coming in and doing some, I won't call them lectures necessarily, but some sort of outreach where your team comes in and talks about these things. I do believe people will come, and if they, they'll come and hear it, and then maybe we can get our video folks to videotape it, and we can do some PSAs and that sort of thing to get the word out.
And to your point, Madam Chair, so every other week of the crime plan, we'll have the community outreach team out, and we will be passing out literature as it relates to the crimes of opportunity, the thefts from autos, the burglaries, the porch pirates, things of that nature. We'll be passing out literature of, for citizens to arm themselves with, to protect themselves from, these type of incidents. The shopliftings, of course, what location is really driving that.
Kohl's and Safeway.
Kohl's and Safeway. That's exactly right.
And
That's exactly right.
And I asked Stan to start looking at the video surveillance, and even if it's a misdemeanor theft, whereby the court commissioner would only issue a criminal summons. One of the things, and it's a whole lot to this, but the short version of it is that a lot of people who commit those thefts are addicts, and they are fentanyl ingested people waiting to OD, because that's how they feed their habit. That's just the sociology of drug addiction. You got to steal to get it. You see a lot of that in your ward, stealing to get money to buy drugs. Another component is that I'm asking that they really look and work with Captain Howard's people to try to get these people identified who may have warrants, open warrants. And that way, that gives us the probable cause to take him into custody, because we've got a warrant signed by a duly sworn judge to bring him in. And so we don't need to, go through the building blocks of probable cause as the C team does when they make observations out on the street. We just know that they want it for other thefts, maybe burglaries, robberies. So we're going to really pay attention to looking at the video surveillance cam. So as an example, if we get a theft, then somebody needs to go and look at the video camera, see if we can capture it, identify who they are, and then run their background through state police to find out if there's a warrant for their arrest. NCIC local, if there's a warrant. So that's just part of the crime plan, without giving away too much. That's how we're going to try to mitigate some of your thefts, along with the PSA, the public safety announcements, telling people to please lock your car, don't leave your car running. All the I'm trying not to be offensive, but all the common sense things you would hope that citizens would do to prevent them from being victims of theft on the outside. And then at some point, we need to check in with the businesses that experience the most thefts, and like you said, Kohl's and Safeway.
Yeah, Miss Kiera's she at Safeway got a promotion. So Mr. Rondell is the new gentleman over there who's the store manager. I've met with him a couple of times. So someone may want to stop by and talk to him.
So last year, the meeting that we were supposed to have had, it never materialized. We were waiting to speak with them to see how we can better assist them with cutting into the numbers of thefts that they were having at the Safeway. And we'll go back and we'll revisit that, as well as the Kohl's. That's the biggest bucket of the thefts that are occurring in your ward, is that Safeway and the Kohl's.
Okay. I think Mr. Rondell will be very receptive to having a meeting. Like I said, I talked to him a couple of times. He's been there all of 2 weeks, I think. So no, we need to go back and revisit that. Should someone from your team reach out to him, or
Yes, ma'am. We can do that. We can
Okay.
definitely do that. We can get that done. Just go up and speak to them, and then we can set up a meeting. And really get down to the nuts and bolts of what's really occurring inside of the Safeway. I mean, we see it every day.
Right. He's
Every day.
not new to Safeway. He was at another location, but someone may see a new person there and try to take advantage of the situation. So that's, like I say, he's been there all of, I think, 2.5 weeks.
Yes,
So that
ma'am.
might be an opportunity. The one thing, the biggest thing that I can think of as far as repetitiveness when it comes to media attention, years and years, way before any of you all were born, they had a big media campaign about littering. And they kept saying it over, don't litter. And finally, people finally bought into it. But they had to say it for years. And I think it was Lady Bird Johnson was the one who kind of started it. But if we just over and over and over and over and over again, I think it will make a huge difference. So
I remember those campaigns. That's the Indian who's crying on the highway when they throw their rags out.
exactly, yeah,
If,
exactly, right.
Dennis is watching. He'll
Mhm.
But yeah, and then not to beat a dead horse, but the MV thefts, the motor vehicle thefts, the same thing. It's all about public awareness and getting literature out just to appeal to citizens to take that extra minute before they go into the store or the shopping center and make sure that their vehicles are secure, not leaving valuables in plain view of any potential thief, and to do all of those things. And then the last component of the crime plan, basic component. Of course, I should say this real quick: the preservation of life always remains number one. That's a policeman's creed. Then protecting property is secondary, along with other qualities, the life things. But I'll let Captain Thacker talk about the omnipresent part of it. I think a big part of this is that our officers have to be visible in the affected areas, the areas that produce the statistical error, the statistical or the stats that would indicate that crime can escalate easily in any of those communities. We have to have cops on the dots, as we used to say in the old CompStat process years ago.
Madam Chairman, good evening.
Good
Yeah,
evening.
the data is pretty clear. If you looked at the information from 2024 for Ward 3, I mean, 78% was property crime, 21% person or violent crime. And then I think Lamar did a really good job of breaking down like the domestic violence based incidents for the violence. The property crime, though, the data would also put me right on top of a portion of Ward 3, West Street corridor. I think we talked about it. I would consider Coles off the West Street corridor, even though it's a little further in that one direction. But the area around Hudson Street, we have a lot of mental health hanging around. There's everything that's affiliated with that. It's mostly property crime, but things do escalate periodically to some aggravated assaults that are related to that. As far as what the deployments are right now for calendar year 2025 in the month of April and May, about 2 weeks ago, I pulled that data up, and the patrol officers are deploying specifically to an area around that, like West and Hudson, like a bigger radius. So much so that I had a conversation with the Anne Arundel County Southern District Captain, Captain McAleer, and I told him that we were actually putting more deployments right there. It's on the border. I would suspect that if I looked at the Anne Arundel County Police data, it would show me an indication that they have like the same type of thing going on their side of the border. But I wanted him to be aware of that and to work in collaboration with Anne Arundel in that space. So whereas we might be have significant deployments on our side of the border, that they can have significant deployments on their side of the border and share the intel back and forth. We were talking about the recidivists, whether it's burglary recidivists, for violent crime, robbery recidivists, larceny from auto recidivists. I mean, what they do, this is what they do. They're a burglary guy. They're going to do burglaries. If they're breaking into cars, they're going to break into cars. Trend line right now for car break-ins for the entire city, but specifically for Ward 3, we're trending really good. That would be an indicator that we located somebody who was a car break-in specialist, and they're currently sitting. So I'll dig in a little bit further and find out. We want to know when that individual gets released. We don't want to see a spike in that particular crime set. But right now, things are looking pretty good. Using some data for the crime plan, we published, one of our lieutenants put together all of the accidents, fatal accidents, property damage, personal injury accidents. And what do you know? It basically puts us from like Legion Avenue all the way to the city-county line on West Street. So we're going to be there. We're also going to be a little bit lower. And I would say Chickapin and Forest Drive is right on the border between Ward 3. So we're going to be there. Those two areas lead the entire city in automobile accidents and injury. So if the mission really is the preservation of human life, it's not just stopping the murders and the shooting incidents, but it's also traffic fatalities and the possibility of people getting severely hurt in automobile-related accidents, but also like the overdose situations. So
Like
we're
the little
doing
boy,
really good.
Yeah, the little boy recently, a Germantown elementary student, same thing. We're having a meeting on site with MDOT. I think it's the 15th of this month to talk about what they can do.
That's right.
But also a couple of weeks ago, Congresswoman Elfreth wrote a letter. So we're going to have a study, a PCEP study between Legion Avenue where it breaks from 2 to 4 lanes all the way up to Route 2. So we're doing some mitigation. That took a while. We had the Gibraltar light installed a few years ago. That took years and years to get that. So we're doing, like you said, doing some things on that side. The one thing I want to mention about the Hudson Street and the lighthouse,
Yeah.
when Miss Kenny left, she had been there many years, and she went on to another initiative. When she left about 8 years ago, I don't have enough fingers and toes to count how many executive directors have been there. That's part of the problem. There's been no consistency there, and I'm not blaming anyone, but she was the consistent force at that location, not anymore. And Chief Simmons knows we've had some issues for homeless, and we've had some tents back there and all of that. So that's been another issue that he's been dealing with as well with the city. So just kind of talk to everybody and get their sense of what's going on there. So it's been a inconsistency of leadership there. And they've been moving more people there, in there and out of there than I've seen. And so, like I said, I can't count how many they've had. Acting, temporary, and all of that. So it hasn't been consistency at the Lighthouse Shelter since Ms. Kenny left.
Yeah, the goal all summer and probably for the remainder of the year, the two areas on West Street that will be focused on top of our deployments in some of the housing units, it's going to be about the 100 to 300 block of West Street, which is a little bit lower further down, but it's up there around that Hudson and West Street. So pinched in between is our traffic concern. I do believe that a focused traffic initiative in that space will pay dividends on mitigating a lot of these other property-based crimes. We're going to be physically in the area, and just that high optic deployment alone should help punch down some of these numbers. So
Right.
we'll take a look at it as it develops every 30 days. We need to make some adjustments, but that's the goal for the remainder of the summer crime plan, but probably also for the rest of the year.
Yeah, sounds like a good
And also,
idea.
my officers do old-fashioned business checks too. You know, and that just entails going up into West Street, the areas that Captain Thacker advised, and just have the officers to go in there for 5 minutes and just be present. Wave to the business owner, the manager, ask them how things are going. If you see something, say something. All those basic things. I don't want to sound like a mantra, but those things are effective along with other things. And here's the matrix in all of this. I'm hoping that if we have a successful crime plan, it'll matrix us getting the type of information we need to maybe solve some of these other more serious crimes, like our contact shootings, all shootings, contact or not, and homicides. And I just want to go on the record to say we're still working vigorously, or Captain Howard's detectives are still working vigorously on Hoclaw,
Yes, sir.
as well as some of the other unsolved homicides. So hopefully, if we pull this off correctly with the right people out there, the citizens feel good about what we're doing, then just maybe, hopefully, prayerfully, somebody will come forward with a tip that may help us to solve it. And then the last thing is I do plan on being out there. So if any anybody in any of the 8 wards wants me to stop by and talk about as it's developing, I'll make sure, we have to schedule it, but to make sure that I'm amenable to be there. They want to
Okay.
hear from me
Great.
personally.
Before COVID, just one point, I had SDAT, State Department of Assessments Taxation, saw that I had over 700 businesses. I think after COVID, a lot of people may not be home-based, but it's over 900, and they're tucked every conceivable place in Ward 3. I've got way more than anybody else, and so I know that brings on a lot of other issues, but like you said, it's mainly Kohl's and Safeway is where it's really happening, and so that corridor exactly between Goodwill and Route 2 is a hotbed through there, and a lot of car dealerships and auto repair shops and those kinds of things. But just having someone from your department just moving in there and basically, like you said, hi, how you doing, how things going, just to let them know that somebody is there and is watching at some point in time, I think is really good. It gives them a level of comfort where they are, that the police are coming through. I have seen officers getting out their cars recently, and even sitting and watching and all of that. So it really makes a huge difference.
And I'll say
thank you
this,
so much.
your ward, unlike wards 6, we can't call on the federal partners because it doesn't rise at federal
Right.
level. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You have a lot of petty crime. We don't have racketeering in your ward.
Mm-mm.
I'm not saying that diminishes the problem. I'm
Right.
just saying that just so the listeners, if you wonder why we don't have the federal partners that we always talk about, you don't have that type of
Mm-mm.
crime.
No.
You don't have the drugs and the handguns and the extortion and the intimidation and all those other things
Mm-mm.
that go along with it. That we could take these cases federal,
Right.
but we do recognize that you have still, anytime the quality of life is affected, then that's why we're here, to try to make it better.
Right.
So I just wanted to make that a part of
Thank
the discourse. Yes, ma'am.
Speaking of Ward 6, Alderman Gay has a question or two. Alderman Gay, are you on?
I am here.
Okay, thank you.
And I have to jump soon, but I just a couple of quick, really quick questions, if possible. I did have a chance to get the report, and I appreciate you sending it out ahead of time. I thought things would be just a tiny bit more detailed, and I will get into those with you in email, in particular, because this is about Ward 3, and so I'll try to stick to that. I did hear you, though, mention plainclothes officers would be out and looking for individuals with weapons. In 30 seconds or less, if you could explain to me how that will be done within the bounds of the Constitution and the framework of the Annapolis City Code, I would greatly appreciate that.
Yes, sir. And when I said they're going to be out there in plain clothes, they're going to be out there on a mission. This is targeted enforcement, constitutionally based. I think that what you are thinking is the old days when we just sent cops out there and this, unsupervised virtually, and left them to their own devices. It's not that kind of deployment. We're going to be serving warrants. We're going to identify people who are wanted, and we're going to start serving some of these outstanding warrants, and we'll do other things. This is intelligence based policing. And then if we do get out there and we see somebody who raises our suspicion that either crime is about to be committed or was just committed, then we're going to make sure that we're able to articulate all the building blocks of probable cause. Reasonable articulable suspicion can sometimes lead to probable cause in a minute. Sometimes it doesn't lead to anywhere other than reasonable articulable suspicion. And we can't arrest anybody for that. We can stop them, but we can't arrest them. So I assure you that we're prepared to justify everything constitutionally that we're doing.
Well, I just asked that because I obviously remember, two pivotal moments of your tenure. The first being when you were brought here. Well, 3 actually. The first being when you were brought here, and there were concerns as it relates to unreasonable search and seizure. Secondly, obviously the George Floyd, acts that went on and the things that grew from policing out of that. And then thirdly, obviously the stop and frisk incident that the department had at where it was, there was suggestion that stop and frisk would be used within the Annapolis Police Department. So, keeping in mind what you just said in those three things is the reason why I asked the question. And again, I'm not an officer, never would pretend to be one. And I, have a great deal of respect. I said when I did my ride along, that was enough for me. How do you, though, practice that? And I'm just imagining, you're in plain clothes, either walking in a vehicle. Now, do you see the handgun alleged, let's just use a handgun here, or even a knife? Do you see said weapon and, obviously approach and identify, or do you see a person who has maybe had a history of violence in some way, shape, or form, and you approach them? How does that work?
Well, let me say this. If you see a person, I don't care what their history is, as long as they're not wanted for a crime and as long as we don't suspect that they're doing anything else, then we're not just pulling people up because they have a history of crime. I would agree with you there. That's bordering on unconstitutional. A person's past shouldn't have any bearing as to whether they're armed or not. Now, that's not to say that if you see somebody who was just paroled and he was a very violent offender, we are entitled to look at them and make sure that we're visible. But I'm talking about furtive movements that would indicate, and we're trained to do that, that you're trying to avoid the police, unnatural bulges, time of day, relative to an incident that may have just occurred, discharge that may have just occurred, good physical descriptions. And even then, we're not just pulling people over and going in their pockets. We're going to make a good constitutional-based approach. First of all, people don't have to. Well, I don't want to give away that part of the plan, but people do have rights, and I can assure you that. First of all, your question is a fair one. It's very fair given the recent history of policing in America. But I don't want the citizens to panic, because the only way we're going to get the guns off the street, we got to be out there, and we got to use the power of observation, and we have to use the skills. We're a very good and well-trained police department, so I don't think that citizens have to worry about our officers doing some of the horror stories that you hear about in a lot of departments. That really hasn't occurred. This is not a goon squad whereby they just ride, and because you're African American, Black, or Latino, we're just going to immediately jump out on you and throw you up against the wall or have you sitting on the curb. No, we're going to look at the crime stats, and then we're going to deploy our men and women where the likelihood, this is all about probabilities, the likelihood anywhere in the city of Annapolis where we're experiencing problems, and then take it from there. It's no cookie cut explanation, but that's pretty much the premise. But at the end of the day, we're going to do our very best to be in compliance with the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
And thank you for that great explanation. And I in no way, shape, or form believe that any member of the Annapolis Police Department under your leadership is engaging in any unlawful behavior. I just wanted to pose the question.
No, that was a fair question, Alderman. I'm not, that was a fair question. And I think at the minute I said seat, there are a lot of people who have those concerns. So no, sir, I understand your question. It was a very fair one. I was just taking the time to, and I know that a lot of this from your training, that we're not just going out there. It's not a goon squad. It's not a squad that just goes out there rogue with no direction and no supervision. First of all, Captain Howard can speak to that. We're not sending them out there at all without some sense of direction. They'll have a mission, whether it's targeting individuals that we know are wanted or some other things, looking for trends, looking for people who are stealing cars or trying to break into homes, all those things we just described when we were talking about the index numbers. So you know, I would encourage, I think one of the suggestions I would make is while we having this crime plan during the summer, that maybe some of the, all the people would be willing to do a ride along to see the plan in real time. And then I think that would go a long way with your constituents to say, hey, I rode with the officer and I saw what they're doing. And so I think they would have a whole different perspective. So I'm just putting it out there. If you want to see what we're doing, you're welcome to do it.
I would, if I thank you, Madam Chair. I think I just have two really quicks. I would not be opposed to that at all. It's been a while since the first one, and so if I could do that before the next public safety meeting, that would be nice. My second two quick points. The Alderwoman and yourself mentioned that the hotspots in her ward being Shoppers and the Coles. I'm wondering. To her point, what is in place with the staff there? If they understand that obviously this is a hot place for theft. Did you say 78% of the theft in that ward is coming from this particular area? I may have misheard that, but I'm just curious what is being done there. And then my last question, I completely forget the gentleman on the end's name there, and I'm so sorry. But I meant to follow up with you for the domestic violence literature, and just wanted to apologize for not doing that, and I will do that immediately.
Yes, Captain Thacker.
Thank you, Captain Thacker. I apologize.
Yeah, I have that safety plan. I can provide that to you. I've changed it, taken the liberty of changing from a former employer to a current employer, but I can get that to you for the domestic violence plan. No, what I said was for calendar year 2024 for Ward 3, total crime, 78% was property crime. It's not that it was just at Kohl's or at the Safeway. That's for the entire ward. However, I would say that if you were to look at it at a map, a cluster map, you would see a very high inordinate amount around the Kohl's, or I would say the West Street corridor up in that space, in that particular geography. You would also see a cluster down where the Safeway is too. So it's not, those two areas don't total 78%. The entire ward itself was 78% property crime. But yeah, as far as the on-scene personnel, the Kohl's loss prevention officers are on site. And if you were to listen to the radio almost daily, it seems like they're very active. So I haven't met them yet. The intent is to get out, and just as we were talking about meeting the manager of the Safeway, I can shoulder that and take that if Lamar wants to travel down with me. But I think that we have some really good people working, like at the Kohl's and working probably at the Safeway from the historical trends of what you've communicated. So they become part of the team, and so we're all kind of working in it together. What I also see, and I think Lamar would. The messaging to a lot of the establishments for the clerks, especially at some of the 24-hour stores, whether it's the gas stations or any of the convenience stores, is that the clerks aren't engaging, which takes a simple larceny to a larceny gone bad, a shoplifting gone bad, turns it into a robbery. So we're not struggling with that at an inordinate number. So that's a good thing. So the messaging, as you were talking about being consistent with it and driving it home, I think the same thing is applicable at the Kohl's. I don't think the loss prevention officer is necessarily tackling the individual, but I think that they are taking people into custody without issue. And I think that that's a good thing. I think it's a good business plan they have going on right now. But I can get you that domestic violence plan, sir.
Thank you, Alderman Gay. Any other information to be provided this evening?
No, I just want to say that the crime plan is just a template. I heard the Alderman say he thought it'd be more detailed, and they are more details. It's just that we want to be very careful about how we disseminate the information. We gave you an overview. If you want to talk to me privately, any of the Alder people, I'll give you more details, but we have a lot of things planned. Some things I want to manage the community's expectation. I don't want to promote any promises that I can't keep. So we have some things in the pipeline, and I'll announce them as we go along if I can pull it off. But I'm managing expectations too. I don't want to tell you that, we're going to take the kids to the moon, literally, and let them see outer space, and they get all excited, and then it doesn't happen, So I want to be very credible and give an honest presentation as to what to realistically expect. But there'll be other things, and we'll make sure that we keep the council apprised as it materializes.
Good. The other thing is too, we need to talk about, and I don't know where it is in the pipeline as far as who reviews it and all, the workload study from the University of Maryland.
Yes, ma'am.
I know Ms. Buckland is overwhelmed, I guess. But that's something we need to talk about at some point within the next month or so.
Yes, and
What
I'm
does
trying
that
to establish a more workable relationship with the state's attorney, and I'm not finished the workload study myself.
Mhm.
I'm anxious though, because there was a lot of investment, thanks to you, Madam Chair. There was a lot of investment in that, and I asked for it, and so I really want to share my thoughts and my command staff's thoughts on that study. So I promise you that I'm multitasking, but we'll continue to read, and I'll let the Public Safety Committee know. I'll let you know when I've read it, and then we can have an intelligent discussion about it. Of course, my agenda is to expand the size of the Annapolis Police Department to provide more outreach and to continue to make it more professional. And before I leave, and who knows when that'll be, but I want it to be headed towards a world-class police department, because we have so many talented men and women who serve every day. Many of them go unrecognized for the good work that they do, and especially the younger ones. I want to really leave a legacy that they will want to stay here and see it through, the vision through. So that's what's so important about the workload analysis. And what I've read so far is, I think, favorable to what I've been talking about almost 6 years since I've been here.
I just don't want it to get stale.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the thing. I want to kind of keep
No,
it
it
on the
can't get
front
stale.
burner.
Too much invested in it,
Yeah.
and I'll personally not let it get stale. That's my promise
Right.
to you. It was a lot that went into that, not only the fiscal part of it, but just convincing the council that it's the right thing to do. So to your point, we can't let it go stale. Too much invested in it. But unfortunately, the nature of what we do is reactive a lot of
Sure.
times. And when they get to shooting, and when these lawless people want to come in and try to take over the city, then these two brothers right here, along with my deputy chief and some other ones, we're going to make sure that we, handle our business, or handle the city's business, and mitigate that. And unfortunately, at times, that takes me away from reading. I have to put that down to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. But at some point during the summer, I'll make sure that we have a date set so we can have a discussion with the council.
Alderman Gay has another question, but I just want to say we do recognize that we have a lot of things going on around us, whether it's Anne Arundel County or Prince George's County and that sort of thing. So we're not immune to what that is all about. But I think so far we're doing a really good job of kind of taking care of our own, which is tough. And I know that it's really tough to try to take care of our jurisdiction, but recognizing around us is just watch the news. It's just a lot going on.
It's
But
a lot
anyway,
going on, and America's dangerous right now for so many reasons. And we got to make sure that we stay ahead of the curve,
Right.
Now that Kalia has been reconciled, and
Thank
we got
goodness.
that system in place, we can start focusing on things like the work study. But you understand,
Right. Oh, definitely.
Madam Chair. Yeah, I know you understand. So now that was huge, and I'm still wiping the sweat off of my forehead that we got that taken care of, and we
Okay.
can start with now I'm gonna prepare myself to speak to the work study
Right.
in the near future.
I think Alderman Gay has another. Alderman Gay, you have another question?
Not a question, just neglected to thank the department for their recent response in the shooting in Ward 6. I thought it was fantastic putting the information out and alerting the public to, what was going on in real time. I know there was a delay there of 12 hours, but it's because you were collecting the information. And so thank you all for that very, very much.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Thank you,
sir.
Alderman Gay, for bringing that to our attention. I think it's certainly worth noting we sometimes had some real-time issues, but now we seem to be on track, and that's a great thing. So without compromising any type of investigation. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Alderman Gay. We're going to move on. And that was ID 3425. Thank you, gentlemen. We're gonna
Okay,
move
and to
on
my two colleagues of the public safety team, Director Kevin Simmons and Chief Romali, I'm apologizing for them that I have to leave, but they want us up at the American Legion,
Right.
so I'm going to go up on Forest Drive. So I don't want to think I'm just cutting, not supporting them. So
I understand.
Mhm.
We all understand.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Mhm.
ID 3525, and that was Fire Department update. Chief Romali and Deputy Chief Lopez. Captain Howard, just remind him about that information, please, that I need. Yes. Thank you. Mhm. You too. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening. Doug Romali, Fire Chief. And as you stated, Deputy Chief Lopez is here to my left. For the Annapolis Fire Department, last month in April, we responded to 1,028 calls for service. Of those, 75% of that were EMS calls, 23% were fire calls, and the remainder of those are rescue, hazmat, and service type of calls. We continue to have 4 people in Anne Arundel County's Fire Academy. They are doing well. We still have 2 individuals out at paramedic training, one at the Anne Arundel Community College and one at being trained with Howard County Fire Department. And then we have one of our firefighters that is in the Anne Arundel County Police Academy to become one of our fire and explosive investigators. I bring that up just so that you understand that those individuals will be out of the field for anywhere between 7 months to 18 months. We don't see those people in the field, so that affects us with our operations every day, but it's necessary training that's out there. Also, last month, we did have a working structure fire in the historic district. It was on Prince George Street and happened on a weekend. It was a busy weekend near Maryland Avenue. Luckily, people saw the smoke coming from that structure, which allowed for early notification. Our crews from Annapolis, Anne Arundel County, and the Naval Academy were there quickly, were very aggressive, and were able to extinguish that fire before it progressed. It was in a very old home, and it could have been severe, so we're glad that we were able to get there quickly. But for Ward 3, these are our responses. Citywide, so far this year, you can see we had 2,599 calls in the city. 286 of those are actually in Ward 3, which makes up about 6% of the total call. Ward 3 makes up about 6.17% of those calls. We bring this slide for every ward just to remind everybody about the fire loss over the years. We did have that good year last year, and we hope to continue with that trend. We knock on wood every time we see that.
Is a lot of that due to your community outreach and aggressiveness?
Yeah,
in
we
getting the
believe
word out?
all those factors. It's the men and women of the Annapolis Fire Department that make that happen, and all the initiatives they have, and wearing many hats to get out there between public education and actually emergency responses. So we believe that all plays impact on it, and to include our fire marshal's office, which is very aggressive with code compliance operations. So in your ward, we don't have a lot of challenges. It's a primary residential and business ward. Your streets are not narrow like the downtown streets and Eastport streets, so our apparatus can get there quickly. Your ward is basically the primary fire station for that ward is the Forest Drive Fire Station right there, Forest Drive and Bywater Road. So that engine and medic unit out of that station respond to these areas every day. And then it's backed up by the other stations in the city and then actually Anne Arundel County. So there's a station on Jennifer Road that also responds to that because they are close to your response area there. And as you know, when the police department talked about Hudson Street, part of Hudson Street's in Annapolis, part's in the county. So that's right on that county line, and that West Annapolis Fire Station responds to a lot of those. Just a quick update. We've talked about this fire engine we ordered almost 3 years ago. I am proud to say that last week we had a small group of members of our department that went out for the final inspection on this fire engine in Appleton, Wisconsin. The engine is moving along very rapidly. These are pictures of it. There are some minor issues that need to be addressed just to meet our specification and the spec. And we hope to see this unit in Anne Arundel County, which is actually at Atlantic Emergency Solutions, which is Pierce's local dealer, and they're located in Anne Arundel County. So we plan on seeing that later this month. The plan would be for this unit to go in service at the Forest Drive station by July. Chief Lopez can give you a quick update on our strategic plan.
Good evening, ma'am. So, as I've talked about before, the last strategic plan for the fire department was in 2004. We're using the Center for Public Safety Excellence model in the development of the strategic plan. We have a committee established with diverse cross-section of fire department personnel. We have started both an internal and we're working on an external stakeholder survey and focus group. The internal focus group began March of this year, and we hope to have it end soon. The external survey and focus group we expect to launch in June with the draft document to the fire chief for review in September of this year.
Who are your main external stakeholders?
So we are working with the PIO's office and the assistant acting city manager to work on developing that. We don't have it set yet. Like I said, we're going to be launching it next month in the process of developing both the questionnaire for the survey and who we're going to target for the focus group.
Just to add that, I have concerns about cancer in the fire service. I
Right.
bring that up all the time, and how it's affecting the fire service across the United States. Cancer is becoming the number one cause of deaths for our first-line firefighters. We were able to successfully get a grant through the state of Maryland, partnered with the Annapolis Professional Firefighters Local 1926, and we're able to do some testing for that cancer initiative. Large majority of the department participated in that grant. They had some screening done recently, so they're receiving the results of that screening. And we have 2 other initiatives to go along with that cancer initiative that we have, and some more screening opportunities. So we're going to continue to move that forward. As you know, when I took the job as fire chief, that was one of our priorities, was the health and safety of our people. And we continue to move those avenues and those programs forward. That's about all we have, unless you have any questions.
Okay, no. Thank you. No news is good news, I guess. The main thing. Thank you all so much for all that you do, as always.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You all be safe. Okay. All right. And lastly, thank you for your patience, Chief
Alderwoman,
Simmons. Oh, I'm sorry.
Alderwoman.
Alderman Gay, do you have a question?
I had 2 quick ones.
Okay,
One,
for the
I
fire
just was
department.
listening to NPR
Okay.
today, and they were mentioning the school in Frederick closed. I'm wondering how that impacts us, the fire academy.
Oh, right.
And
Yes, I did
Yeah,
hear that
that-
on the news.
yeah, please.
I missed part of that question. It was about the National Fire Academy. Is that what you?
Yes. Yeah.
So National Fire Academy is in Emmitsburg, Maryland. It is the national academy that brings people from across the United States in there for specific training programs. Chief Lopez was just there recently over the last weekend. They had the National Fallen Firefighters Memorial is done there every year, where they recognize people that have lost their lives in the line of duty. They do a ceremony every year. The academy itself is still closed, though, correct?
Yes, the National Fire Academy falls under FEMA, and due to what's going on in the federal government, the academy is closed, but the memorial, the foundation, National Firefighters Memorial Foundation, continued with the memorial this weekend. The training that takes place at the academy is temporarily suspended.
So is is there a
Is
building
that
and that's,
oh,
oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, go ahead, Alderman Gay.
No, I just was wondering if is that impacting us at all?
Not directly, no.
Is there a building there that's actually closed?
It's an entire college campus
Okay.
that is not accessible academically at this point.
And lastly, within that same report from NPR, they were also discussing record lows, I guess, in African American fire personnel. And I don't know if that's the case within our department. I certainly don't believe it is the case. Just based off of what I see, I'm wondering if how we are addressing that, if that is a concern. And that's my last question.
We believe our department represents the community we serve. We believe we have a diverse group of individuals within the department. We're always looking for candidates for positions that are open. We recently just opened last week a job announcement for firefighter paramedic, but they are lateral positions. So they're people that are already trained as firefighter paramedics to come over because the two positions that we have currently open are paramedic positions. And like I said earlier about sending people to school, it takes up to 18 months to 2 years to get those people trained. So if we can pick them up off the street, but we continue to get out there. We recruit as necessary when we do have job openings, and we try to bring in the community that we serve. We try to get some more people in there. I don't know if that really answers your question, but we continue to go out there and recruit individuals from all aspects of our community.
Yeah, I appreciate you responding to that. Just curious about those two things.
Thank you, Alderman Gay. Okay. All right. Thank you again, gentlemen. All right. Chief Simmons, good to see you. How's your staff doing? Okay. Okay. And is one of your staff members returned? Oh, your mic's not on.
My staff is doing well. Most of all, they're here.
Okay, including a person who had been out for a while.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay.
He's
Good to
back
see.
in the saddle like
Great.
he never left.
Wonderful.
So
Great.
we're
Give
moving
it-
forward.
Give him my best.
I will.
Mhm.
So for the record, Kevin Simmons, I'm the director of the Office of Emergency Management for the city of Annapolis, and I'm here to give the Ward 3 updates and all. So first off, we'll talk a little bit about the Food Friday program. Everybody knows what the Food Friday program is. We distribute about 300 boxes of food every week to food insecure folks in the city of Annapolis. OEM does the administrative oversight, and we're helped a lot by Alderwoman O'Neill, who organizes the program, and all of our volunteer seniors that make this program go. We just entered into a Food Friday partnership with Pastor Cheryl Menendez and First Baptist on West Street, on West Washington Street,
Mhm.
to make sure that we are more effective and efficient in our distribution of foodstuffs.
I have a quick question. I know that last summer there was an issue regarding using the Pip Moyer Center during the summer because the interference with the camps. Has that been resolved for this coming summer? Because I think we had to use the Eastport Fire Station.
Well, I don't have the answer to that question.
Mhm.
We have not talked about it yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to come up soon. And I am confident if the Pip Moyer Rec Center has all of those programs, I can certainly go to Chief Romali and the Eastport Volunteers, and they will let us use that facility for 2 months. And it worked out.
Okay.
Not what we want to do permanently. Pip Moyer works out better, but for the alternative, it worked out well.
Good. I know school closes on June the 13th.
Okay, so we got a
Thank you.
month. Okay, so Ward 3, Food Friday stats. We do 41 families, which is 128 individuals, 21 seniors, and 41 children. And where we do our most work is Bowman Drive. We have 30 individuals, 13 families, which is about 31% of our business there. This is just a map to kind of let you know where the targeted areas are where we deliver food to our family.
Hold on one second.
Sure. And the pie chart indicates every single location.
Right. Thank you. That is extremely helpful.
Okay. And you get a copy of this too, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions?
No, very good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and move into our substance use disorder update for Ward 3. So Ward 3 last year had 18 overdoses. This is the tied for the second lowest since we've been keeping record in 2015. Ward 3 was second in the total overdoses compared with other wards. Number 1 was Ward 4 at 22, and then number 2 was Ward 3 with 18. And if you look at the bar chart there, you can see how you progressed in Ward 3 from 2022 to 2024. So it took a pretty substantial dive. And I attribute it to, the chief talked about his crime plan, them being very aggressive with the enforcement part of it, but also the outreach and the prevention and the treatment part of it from all the other agencies.
I'm extremely saddened, and it's unfortunate that we were not able to hire the person. I know it wasn't coming out of your department. It was in the budget for this year, and I don't know what the snafus were, but we were supposed to hire someone to do community outreach, but we never could get there. But hopefully maybe for the next budget season, we can get someone to do that community outreach.
And I'll talk a little bit about the budget too
Okay.
in this report. So you had 2 fatal overdoses that reported in Ward 3. And your average in Ward 3 for fatal overdoses is 2. And typically, even when we see a drop in overdoses, still our fatals hang around 9 or 10%. That's a nagging thing that we want to try to overcome. But I also want to point out to you that Narcan usage was about 83% in Ward 3.
That's great.
So the Narcan training and distribution is working.
Obviously.
Here's the locations of the overdoses in Ward 3. Again, it was 18, 5 on Forest Drive, 4 on West Street, 3 on Parole Street, 3 Hudson Street, 1 Solomon's Island Road, and 1 in Captain Circle, and 1 in Capitol Drive.
That West Street corridor again, that even the police were talking about, as problematic.
It is, and I was glad to hear the plan, and I'm encouraged that they'll make a difference down there based on what they were discussing. So when you're talking about age in Ward 3, ranges align with the historical trends citywide, with 20 to 34-year-olds and 35 to 44-year-olds. However, in Ward 2 and Ward 3 tend to have a higher overdosage with 55 to 64 folks years of age. And Ward 3, the white population represented the largest group of overdoses in Ward 3. It is the only ward where the white population overdoses more.
Does that have anything to do with Hudson Street? You don't know?
I don't know.
Employees at certain businesses? I'm wondering, since I have so many, I'm just kind of throwing that out.
It could. If I would say to you that I knew the answer to that question, I don't, and that we'd have to pull back more layers to figure that out. In 2024, 65% of all overdoses in the city were African American. A little bit more statistics. Ward 3, 2024 and 23 saw the majority of overdoses occur in the hours of 6 p.m. and 12 a.m. And I know that's of particular interest to you.
Yes.
Ward 3, the day of the week that overdoses occur fluctuate. So you can see that in the bar chart. Most of the overdoses are on Friday.
Friday night.
Friday from 6 to 12 midnight. Historically, on average, half of the victims of an overdose in Ward 3 reside in Ward 3.
Now, question about the word usage of reside. Does that include Hudson Street residents? Is that considered their residence or not?
You're talking about the people at the Lighthouse Shelter?
Yes, sir.
That is their residence.
Right.
That is their residence. And this is even though part of Hudson Street is in the county, this is for Annapolis proper.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see 8 folks who actually live in Ward 3. 4 were homeless, 4 were non-residents, 1 from Ward 2, and 1 unknown. We didn't have enough information. Let's talk a little bit about 2024 and fatality.
Pennell Charles.
Yes, Alderman Gay, go right ahead.
Just really, really quickly, I just want to say, and so all those are then mostly very preventable deaths and overdoses. And particularly if Friday through Saturday, 6 p.m. to midnight, that's when they're the highest overdose counts in the ward. That's why I think that opioid overdose money has to be assigned to direct on boots on the ground programming, like we had it in 2019 and 2020 at the peak of the opioid crisis, and we fared pretty well. And so, that's just strategic programming to me. 6 p.m. through 12 o'clock p.m. Friday through Saturday, we need to have a team in the hotspot areas. If you're saying it's Hudson Street, I'm believing it's more than Hudson Street, but that just seems completely preventable to me.
And Alderman Gay, we've been having an impact on that. As you can see, our overdoses as a whole in the city has gone down. And I'll produce the next slide will tell the tale on how aggressive the outreach program has been to kind of knock down some of these overdoses in the city of Annapolis.
And I think it also goes back to the inconsistency of leadership at the Lighthouse. That's another thing. We've had that conversation before.
Well, the Lighthouse was one of those facilities that we identified for the dispenser.
Oh, okay.
The harm reduction vending machines.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of we need to get funding to get it done.
Okay.
So Ward 3 reported 2 overdoses. Both were pending the medical examiner's disposition. African Americans represented the largest group of fatal overdose in 2024, with 9 African Americans and 2 white. And the fatal overdoses by age groups, historically, the city saw more individuals overdosing in the 45 plus range, especially African American males, which is different from the county's demographics. So the red dots indicate 2023 overdoses and the green dots indicate the focus efforts from the overdose prevention team there. So you can see where we have overdoses, we flood the area with outreach and resources. And that circled area is more of a West Street, part of West Street, where we're seeing a lot of activity there, and the police are seeing as that as well, and they spoke about it.
Are you and the police department having discussions concerning this?
Yes, we do. They're part of our opioid prevention team. So we have an end of the year report out. I just want to encourage anybody that's watching to go download that report at annapolis.gov/OD free. Alderwoman, you received the report as well as Alderman Gay. I'm pretty sure you received the report. And I just want to make sure that the public knows about this report. A lot of interesting stats, a lot of interesting tidbits on how we run our substance use disorder program in the city of Annapolis.
I don't think I've gotten this.
Okay, I'll make sure you have a copy, but we sent it to all of the alderpersons.
Great.
Okay. And last but not least, I always get the question is, where is the funding going as far as the 4 programs? So our funding does not come from the general fund. It comes from opioid restitution funds, which is monies from the opioid lawsuit directly from the distributors to the city. And then we get a block grant from the health department. So that comes to about $152,000. And so here's where the funding is doled out to. NAM for supplies, contract services, and salary and benefits for their 1 employee, about a little over $50,000. Your Life Matters, the fire department's program, and that goes mostly for the overtime and benefits for the firefighters that participate in that program. And supplies, that's about $37,000. And the police department, the APD, substance use disorder, and that's mostly overtime and benefits for the officers and the civilian employees that participate and make that program work. And $3,000 for supplies, so that's about $29,000. And last but not least, OD Free, which is the umbrella for all of the programs that's run by the Office of Emergency Management or managed by. We have the $35,000, and that's from the Health Department block grant. And we use that for contract services, about 2 salaries, and then education and training. And we fund all of the education and training for the mayor, for the police, and for the fire programs. As a matter of fact, I think we're sending a bunch of them to the RX Summit. And I don't know where it is this year, but it used to be in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we pay for all of that.
Who's your main point of contacts in the fire department and the police department on this effort?
That would be Chief McCray
Chief
and Lieutenant White.
Okay.
Is he lieutenant or captain? Lieutenant White. Those two.
How about in the police department?
Patty Norris.
Okay.
Patty Norris. And Adi Atola for the NAM
Amazing.
program, and MK Seborowski kind of manages the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. There's some event is it next week at the health department?
It might be.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it's similar to the one we attended a few months ago at the health department.
Relating to substance use disorder?
Yes, I do believe so.
Okay. Probably is. I'm not familiar.
No.
Okay. So that's it. That's my report for Ward 3.
Great. Alderman Gay, do you have any questions of Chief Simmons?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else for the good of the order, Ms. Berger? Anything from you? Nothing? All right. I think we can have a motion to adjourn. Alderman Gay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I hear no no's. Meeting adjourned at 8:21 p.m. Thank you all so much.